Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.
Hello, and welcome to Confidently Controversial. I am one of your hosts, Emily Paul, and with me, as always, is
Your other host, Kimberly Tweed.
And
good morning.
Good afternoon, good evening.
And good night to you, sir.
And that's the end. Talk to you next week. So, hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Emily. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing well. I was just picking up our coffees on the way here. So
Thank you again.
Well, thank you, because you were lovely enough to purchase them so that all I had to do was pick them up.
Yes.
And I was shamed at the window.
For what?
Because I didn't follow I didn't know that the protocol is, if there was no line.
Okay.
So I didn't know that protocol is that you still have to go to the window, like the talkie part.
Yes, and
tell them. I didn't know that. So I just went straight to the window, and the girl would shamed me a little bit. She's like, we do ask people to at least say that you're here in the thing. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh.
So then I felt bad. I instantly
now you're in trouble.
Yeah, now I'm in trouble. So I instantly felt both little kid, mad at that lady.
Right.
Who was essentially just a kid. Because it's the summertime, we live in a touristy area, so of course there's a ton more people down here this time of year.
Yes.
So all of the places of business hire a lot more people to keep up with the volume. So the thing that makes me sad is usually that Starbucks is the nice Starbucks where they put little stickers on the coffee.
Right. Yeah,
and I know. It's a joy.
It is joyful over there.
Their summer people have sucked. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to be bold. This is confidently controversial.
Sure.
And I'm going to say that I don't like the summer people they hired. They're they're a bunch of kids who aren't as nice as the regular kids that work there.
Well, I hope that they heed your warning that you will be taking it to another level here.
Crush you.
You are a frequent flyer at that Starbucks, so they should really pay attention to what you have to say about things.
I'll just go back in Pretty Woman style, be big mistake. I'll carry a big Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and I'll be like, do you work on commission? And they'll be like, no, we don't.
Actually, no.
Actually, we don't.
Can we help you?
I'll be like, no, I'm sorry, I gotta go.
They'll be like, well, that was weird.
I know. And then I'll never be able to go in that Starbucks again.
Right. And you'll just have shittier coffee.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of the weirdness of this area, so on Friday, I live in a very populated summer shore town, and the power went out.
Okay.
At 12:30 on Friday.
Okay.
So it was fine for a little while, and then we found out there was a fire at the place that makes electricity.
Well, that's an important place.
Right. Thankfully, no one was hurt.
Is that what it says at the on the door of it? The place that makes electricity.
Yeah, and it's in neon lights, but it was all dark because it wasn't working.
Oh
no. So the whole town, from coast to coast, east to west, lost all of their power. We had lost power for about, I think, ultimately it was probably about 9 hours.
And everybody here was really super cool about it, right?
Yes, so cool about it. So my husband and I drove off of the island to go get food on Friday night, but apparently everyone else had that idea too. And everybody was real grumpus about it.
Oh,
It was just madness. There was traffic everywhere. My mother-in-law asked us to pick her up some food from McDonald's, and I almost had to stab a man because he dared to try to cut in front of me in the McDonald's line. He came in another way, and we were duking it out, trying to get in position, and he won.
Oh, because
I was real mad.
And I know, that feeling where you're just I'm going to beat this guy, and then at the end you're just I don't want to have a confrontation,
right?
So I'm just going to let this man in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, I talk a big game, but I'm really kind of scared. But he did wrong, and I hate injustice like that. I hate it when people who do things the wrong way get what they want.
As my mother always says, we are living in a society.
Come on, people.
Come on. Especially when it comes to lines.
Yeah.
Come on, people. So we're really bringing in the heat today.
Yeah.
And we got good attitudes coming into this. We've been wronged. So are you ready to talk about this week's movie?
I guess so. Are you ready to talk about
I
it?
am. So as you know, Kim, every week we take turns picking movies from our youth, movies that, were just on constant play in our houses, and we kind of take another look at them and see maybe how, looking at them through adult eyes to see maybe how they might have affected us.
Right.
Because, all this, putting all that content into small brains has to have some sort of impact, right?
What movies did I watch as a child that made me hate injustice in the world?
I don't know. Well, coming soon to an episode of Confidently Controversial, we're going to dig deep and figure that out.
And we take turns with this, so it's your turn this week to choose the movie.
It is my turn to choose.
Okay.
So this week we are watching a movie that is one of those movies that I know we watched so much at my house.
All right.
My guess is that you did not.
Okay.
That's just my guess.
It seems to be the way things go.
I know. I don't know how my parents were picking movies that we watched, but they were not the movies that you were watching.
I don't know. I don't know who was right, who was wrong.
I don't know either. So this movie was made in 1983.
Okay.
But it didn't come out then. I'm going to guess it didn't come out then because it was a flop.
Okay.
A big flop. It was a big shame.
Oh.
So it was made for $6 million. And it was, for all intents and purposes, it sounds like it just did not go well. It sounds like the director was maybe a newer director, made some decisions with it that made it so that the distribution wasn't great, and it just did not do well in the box office. So it kind of ended up on HBO, which is most likely where I saw it growing up.
Okay.
So this movie, I chose it because ever since I thought of it, I have not been able to get this movie out of my head.
Nervous.
Yes. It was so big in my house. And I think that's because my parents were really interested in watching it because, and this is probably why it was a bit of a shit show, it was filmed in our stomping grounds.
It was filmed in New Jersey?
In South Jersey, specifically.
What?
Yes. And it's actually based on a book. The man who wrote the book wrote it based on his time working at the newspaper in Vineland.
Oh.
Yes.
The Daily Journal?
It was probably the Daily Journal.
What the Daily Journal is today?
He doesn't say exactly what it was, but he says working at that local paper in Vineland. So that's what all of this is based on. So it was filmed down here. They knew a lot of the places featured in it. So that's why that's my memory of the first time I watched it. My mom being like, oh, I wanted to see this because Tony Mart's is in it, which is like a bar that they used to go to. So they were excited to see it.
I have no idea what this is so far.
It's also a big one for me because I was in love with the main character.
Okay.
Like, big time in love. I just, definitely one of, if not, he definitely wasn't my first crush, who was Peter Frampton from...
Of course.
from the Sgt. Pepper's movie.
Okay.
Who was your first crush?
I don't know. I have a lot of weird stuff in my head about that. Because my mom was really into Tom Selleck when I was a kid.
That's a good first crush.
It wasn't mine, but I had a poster of him hanging in my room because
your mom liked to go in your room. Your mom would be hanging. She's like, if I'm going to hang out in here, I'm going to put a picture of Tom Selleck.
Yeah, but I also feel like it had BB holes shot in it that maybe my dad shot the BB holes at it.
What, to be like, take that?
Take that, Tom Selleck. You can't have my wife.
Oh, poor Tom Selleck.
Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. He just comes to mind when you ask me that question, but I don't think it... I know who it was.
Who?
Bo Duke.
Oh, Bo Duke was hot.
Yeah, Dukes of Hazzard, Bo Duke.
Yeah.
I was a big Dukes of Hazzard fan as a child.
As were we all.
Yeah.
And talk about confidently controversial.
Seriously.
That's maybe the poster child for confidently controversial.
Sure.
I mean,
but I had a bunny rabbit stuffed animal that was named Bo. B-O.
B-O. Aw, poor Bo. That's awesome. Yeah, he was definitely hot. Well, this guy was one of somebody who, I don't know that I just, in my mind, I remember just watching it and just liking this guy,
All right.
quite a bit. I'm going to tell you some of the people who were in it. And you're maybe going to know some of the names here, but I don't know that it will clue you in. So it stars Michael Pare, who really should have had a bigger career than he did.
And he's the one you crushed on?
He's my crush.
Okay.
And then Tom Berenger. Do you know who that is? You'll recognize him if you don't know who that is.
Yeah, I do know who he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom Berenger. Matthew Laurance, who you don't know his name, but you do know who he is.
Matthew Laurance?
He's in St. Elmo's Fire. He is the gay man who lives next door.
Oh, I do know who he is.
You do know who he is. So he's like, this is like was a big movie for him.
All right.
Then you have Ellen Barkin.
Uh-huh.
She was the one who was like, this thing's a shit show. Probably because she was down in South Jersey and was like, where the hell am I?
Right.
What is happening?
I'm a star.
I'm a star. Why am I in Vineland? And then Joey Pantoliano, Joey Pants.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So you have no idea what this movie is.
No idea at all what this movie is,
Okay.
no.
This movie is Eddie and the Cruisers.
Oh. Oh, my God.
Have you ever seen this?
I don't think so, no.
Really?
No, never.
Oh, my
I'm
God.
pretty sure never.
This
Yeah.
is going to be awesome. I have not watched this movie in a very long... This is very like Incredible Shrinking Woman in that watched it so much as a kid. Listened to the soundtrack.
Because it's about a band, right?
It's about
Eddie and the Cruisers are a band.
Eddie and the Cruisers are a band.
Sweet.
And they have a soundtrack, and we listened to that. That soundtrack was like a #1 hit.
Are they a real band?
No. So the movie is based on... So Eddie and the Cruisers was supposedly... Like, I'll give you a little summary of the movie. Eddie and the Cruisers was a major rock band in the early 60s. They fell off the radar when singer Eddie vanished over a dispute after a dispute over their experimental second album. Nearly 20 years later, journalist Maggie Foley, Ellen Barkin, tracks down the old Cruisers to see if she can unravel the secrets of Eddie's disappearance. By piecing together the band members' stories, she hopes to find the missing master tapes to the lost LP and also solve the mystery of Eddie's ultimate fate.
Okay, so it's not real?
It's not real.
But why did they choose to set it in Vineland, New Jersey?
Because it's based on... The script was written by the director, who was Martin Davidson. So the biggest other movie... So before this, he also directed a movie called The Lords of Flatbush, which had Sly Stallone and Henry Winkler in it.
Sounds great.
Yeah, but then nothing else really. Like, he directed some other things, but really nothing major after that. So the reason why... So... This was based on the book, but the name of the author is P.F. Klug, and this was one of 2 of his works that have been made into film. So I didn't know this, but I didn't even know it was based on a book. So this movie, and then Dog Day Afternoon. Have you ever seen that? That's
a Clint Eastwood movie?
No, Dog Day Afternoon is with, oh my gosh, what is his name? From the Godfather. He's Hoa!
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino!
Oddly enough, I watched Ocean's 13. I watched all the Ocean's movies yesterday, of course, because they were on, and I can't not.
Yeah.
And Ellen Barkin and Al Pacino are both in the third one.
Crazy! Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So yeah, Dog Day Afternoon is a classic movie, like a really amazing movie that...
Why did I think it was with Clint Eastwood? What's that movie?
I don't know. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
Does it take place in the afternoon?
Possibly. High noon?
I don't know.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah. But yeah, so he wrote a short story that they based Dog Day Afternoon on. It was called The Boys in the Bank. So yeah, this is what Klug wrote about this movie, Eddie and the Cruisers. I found he has like a website, but he wrote a lot of books. Like, it seems like he actually is a pretty substantial author.
Okay.
So he wrote about this Eddie and the Cruisers. It's a fictional examination of my weakness, lifelong weakness, for the songs of my youth. Hits come and go, the products of a season, but they return. Sometimes they seduce and reproach. The novel is set in New Jersey, much of it in Vineland, where I had a summer job on the town newspaper in 1962. The novel and the film have been described as a rock and roll Citizen Kane. To this, I do not object. The first Eddie and the Cruisers was directed by Martin Davidson. The sequel, Eddie Lives, is a talent-free embarrassment.
Oh, there's a sequel?
There's a sequel. The sequel is terrible. I think my family was probably the only people who saw it. It was really, really, really bad.
Okay, so when you mentioned this movie, the band that comes to my mind that I liken this movie to is for some reason Huey Lewis.
They're actually very.
Is it more like Motown-y?
No, they're very much like Bruce Springsteen. Like they wanted it to be like a Jersey bar band.
Okay.
And the director really wanted like a Bruce Springsteen-esque thing, which some people, reviewers have actually said was not great because it doesn't line up with the years when they're supposed to be like that style of music. Doesn't really line up with what was popular at that time.
Okay.
So, you know, the movie has, they looked around for a band to go, you're going to love this. So the band, like I said, it's supposed to be like a Jersey bar band. Rick Springfield actually lobbied for the lead role of Eddie Wilson, but the director just didn't think he could be convincing as anyone other than himself. But the band, which I did take some notes here on the band. So the real band is called John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah, like, I mean, this, because
the Beaver Brown Band is like, they talk about that around here all the time. That's a local thing.
I don't know that, they're actually from Rhode Island, but I think because of this movie, they might have been a little bit more big down here. I mean, the songs in this movie, you will definitely recognize the songs because they were played on the radio a lot. And
can you sing one?
I'm not going to say the big one, Dark Side's coming now, nothing is real. She'll never know just how I feel. I'm like singing into your eyes right now, and it's really weird. You'll know them, but they got their name from a can of paint because originally they were just known as Beaver Brown. And I know you like beavers.
I do.
So I thought you would be really excited. But it's funny because they made music, because if you think about the time period, this is when MTV was huge.
Right.
So they, of course, had a video. But in the music video, it wasn't Eddie and the Cruisers. It was
the Beaver Brown Band.
It was the Beaver Brown Band. Lead singer of the Beaver Brown Band, not as good looking as. And I remember being so, because and I even read it in some of the reviewers, how well he lip syncs these songs.
Okay.
And like the voice, like his voice matches up really well with the voice of the people who are doing like the Beaver Brown people. Right. The Beaver Browns. The Beaver Browns. So I was so disappointed when I would see like the video and you would see this other guy singing, like I hated to watch it. Because it's like, no, in my brain it is
this guy.
And that's who I want to be hearing
like
at this
the original
movie.
Milli Vanilli.
It is the original. Well, I mean, but it's a movie, so you would expect it. Don't shame Eddie Wilson because, you know... but yeah, the director does say he decided to use like a Citizen Kane story structure. I don't remember a lot from like the movie itself. I kind of remember it.
I think it's pretty bold to say that you're going to use a Citizen Kane movie structure. Like I'm going to make a movie that models one of the greatest films of all time, supposedly.
Right. Well, I told you how Ellen Barkin was just when she talked about it, the things I read from her talking about this movie, she was basically just like, yeah, this is the kind of movie you take that your agent sends to you where you're just like, you need a paycheck. So it's like 2 weeks and you go and make this movie. But she was just like, I don't know who's in charge here. I don't know, like, what is happening.
It's just messy.
It was just messy,
okay.
It sounds like. And, like, apparently, you know, the director said that when he completed it, he had 3 different studios that wanted to distribute it, and he kind of chose not a great one. He went with Embassy Pictures because they offered him the most money, but they didn't have any experience in distribution, and they were unable to properly release it in theaters. And he says he remembers that 6 months later, somebody said, "Your picture is appearing on HBO this weekend," and he didn't even know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so it kind of all got away from him.
It did, and it sounds like. But the movie was like a cult classic, like did really well on cable, and then they re-released it in theaters later on, and it did okay. Like at the end of the day, I don't think it made up the money, and they did end up making a sequel because it was so popular.
What was the sequel called again?
Eddie Lives.
Oh, so okay, yeah. So he disappears, but then we find him or something.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with it. It's very they say that in the movie. I do know that a big thing in this movie is talking about like the relationship between words and music. So yeah, I know you're making these faces.
It sounds deep,
but I am so interested to watch this movie because I have really no vision of what this movie was other than the lead singer and the fact that I know that I watched this so many times. So
when was the last time you watched it?
I mean, I don't even know if I watched it when I was a teenager. Like, I remember being shamed as a teenager because I had the cassette tape of the soundtrack in my car.
How dare they?
And I was driving with somebody, a boy, and that boy was just like, what is this? And he was like, there's this dork in my class that always talks about this album and
you're
loves
like, it's
this.
me. I'm that dork.
I know, just get out of course. But of course not that. Back then I was just like, oh, I have to hide my Eddie and the Cruisers tape. But I know I listened to it still and liked it when I was a teenager, but I don't think I've watched it since I was like maybe 10 years old.
Okay.
Like really little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out.
So we will find out. So we will go ahead and watch this movie, which it's not. I couldn't find where it was anywhere.
Okay.
So I had to buy it on
DVD.
I had to buy it on DVD. So
Stop it.
I have the DVD. Look how handsome he is.
Oh my!
He's
Look
handsome,
at that dyed
right?
black hair. Gross.
Oh, it's not. It's just that's the way it is. He was like they found him as a New York chef.
Okay.
Before he worked there.
Well, you can't tell it all.
He's the real. I mean, how did this guy not have a bigger career?
That's not a good picture.
You don't think so?
No, I don't like it.
Okay.
I'll take a picture of it and we'll put it on the Instagram and you guys can decide.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Let's go watch it.
The movie?
Okay, let's go.
Confidently controversial. Hello and welcome back to the Young Tom Berenger Appreciation Podcast. This is your host, Kimberly Tweed.
And I'm co-host on that show for sure, Emily Paul. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. First of all, I would like to hear your thoughts on it because mine are just so steeped in nostalgia that I need to hear your thoughts on it. As someone who definitely never saw this movie, right?
Definitely never saw this movie.
Okay.
I did a lot of Googling and IMDb research during this film. In all those long silences where there was no talking in the movie, where people were just staring meaningfully at each other or just kind of just like longing or listening. There was like music playing in the background. What I kept thinking about this is it is not a movie. Like, if I put any children I know in front of this movie,
I know.
It would not hold their attention for more than 5 minutes. It's so like,
it's an adult movie.
It's an adult movie, but it's also like a very just like straight across the board adult movies. There's not a lot of, there's some music, but there's not a lot of like action or highs and lows or anything to keep your attention. So I'm just wondering what the Rosenberg children were thinking. Were they just like, this is the best. We love a drama.
I don't know, but I was thinking the exact same thing. It certainly, like, it definitely deals with a lot of, it's not only that it has like silences and is thoroughly a drama, it deals with a lot of adult themes throughout the movie that I know I definitely didn't pick up on as a kid. But we watched this movie. Like, I knew every word to those songs.
Yes, you did.
Every single word to those songs. And I knew the movie. Like, I knew what was going to happen next. I knew every little bit of that movie. So I definitely watched it.
A lot.
As a kid. Like, it was definitely in my brain. And I definitely don't understand why we were that into it, except for, like, the music part of it. But we were into it.
Yeah, and I recognized the music. And I definitely, like, when it started, I was like, oh, I just always thought that was Bruce Springsteen.
It's like, very Bruce Springsteen.
I didn't realize it was a separate band because he definitely sounds a lot like Bruce Springsteen. And it's definitely that, like, blue collar.
It's that
rock.
Jersey sound.
Yeah,
Like, it's definitely a Jersey sound. Like, they were, one of the things that I had looked up was there was a guy who was used as a consultant in this, and I'm going to forget his name, but he was, like, a big-time guy in like, New Jersey music, where he was, like... John Bon Jovi said that this was the guy who, like, influenced him to be in music. And he was used, oh gosh, it's going to kill me unless I can find out what his name is. Southside Johnny. So Southside Johnny was called the grandfather of the New Jersey sound, and John Bon Jovi has acknowledged him as his reason for singing.
Which is weird because, okay, we just watched Adventures in Babysitting.
Right.
And who was the band at the frat party? Southside Johnny and the Jukes.
That's him.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the simulation is real.
Right. Because my notes from my last page are right here next to it.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And that must be him. That must be the same guy.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many Southside Johnnies do you know?
Not many. Right. I mean, this is the only one.
Right.
So yeah, like, so it definitely has that New Jersey sound to it. The other thing was that another person who was used as a consultant on this his name was Kenny Vance, and he was from Jay and the Americans.
Okay.
So do you know that song? Like, his song is "Come a Little Bit Closer."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay,
so he's the executive in that.
That's the thing about this movie that's very interesting because it's supposed to be set in the early 60s, and we grew up in the doo-wop area of South Jersey.
They call it the doo-wop area.
It's very like doo-wop centric and everything like that, and you very much think of the Cars matched, yes, but like the type of band that this was did not match like that.
And that's what a lot of the reviewers,
Avalon,
and that's
Dion.
what a lot of, and I think Dion is what the writer had in his brain was kind of like a Dion was what
well, they sing a Dion song.
Yeah, they do.
Run Around Sue.
And I think that's what the author of the book, I think, had that in his head as what it was modeled after. But then the person who made the movie, he wanted it more Bruce Springsteen-y. But a lot of the reviewers, that is a big thing that a lot of the reviewers have said, is that it's asynchronistic in terms of, like, it doesn't match.
Well, he's like Danny Zuko from Grease, kind of,
Sure,
but also like...
Yeah, he's hot. Ugh. Kim did not did
so
not feel for Eddie.
Let me tell you something about Eddie. Do you all remember not that long ago in this podcast where Emily was like, I couldn't believe that it wasn't him singing because he was such a good lip syncer. I just wanted to tell you that he was not a good lip syncer. He opened his mouth too wide. He made his lips too and I hated it.
Yeah, Kim did not like to see him lip syncing. I thought he was hot with his lips and he was singing and it was great. No?
Tom Berenger, the word man.
Tom Berenger. Can we talk about...
Let's take a minute.
Let's take a caesura, a timely pause, as they talk about a lot in this movie, and that is how I learned what that word is. And let's talk about Tom Berenger.
Let's talk about him. So, okay. When we started watching the movie, I was like, oh, Tom Berenger, he was in Major League, which is a really great movie. I love that movie.
Sure.
But I never really thought of him. And I guess wasn't he in like Top Gun or something? Like he's been in a lot of stuff.
He's been in a lot. I think there was like some kind of action. Like I think of him as being like in some like action movies or something. Or
he's had a long career.
He's had a long career.
But in this movie, he is kind of like this kid that is hanging around when the band comes into play somewhere, and he's the hotsy totsy.
He's hot. Like you said it. Like when you said he's like James Franco.
Yeah, he looks like James Franco.
He looks a lot like James Franco, and he's very handsome.
Yeah, and he's like all stubbly at a certain point. He's got his like corduroy jacket on. Hi-yi-yi.
Yeah, he was very, very hot in this movie. And I was too young to realize it. I was just, off in Eddie land.
Well, I think you probably didn't like him. I pointed to a part in the movie where he kisses Eddie's girl, Jo.
Sure.
And I assume that's probably why you didn't like him, because...
I think I didn't like him because he was, like, and I looked him up, too, while we were watching the movie. He was born the exact same year as my parents.
Okay.
So in watching this movie, I was probably like, oh, ew.
He's old.
He's old man.
Right, but now.
But now, he was 34 when this movie was made, and he was at prime Berenger right there. I mean, I get it. I so get it. Yeah, so I feel like that was definitely good. I gotta say, I love how Jersey Shore this movie is.
It's very Jersey Shore. You definitely see some glimpses of Atlantic City, possibly Ocean City.
Yeah, like the wetlands or like the bay is in the background and some of the shots, the colors of it, like when they're in the bars, like that red motif, I feel like there's a lot of bars by us that are like that.
Yeah, and the bars with like the puffy rails.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly. Like I feel like I know that look.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed seeing that.
And so you talked about that Tony Mart place, which is in Summers Point, and I think it's still there.
You said they may have redone it. The thing that I read was that where it actually was leveled and there's something else there. So I don't know if they built something up else that is still Tony Mart's, but maybe a different building itself.
Sure.
But the look of it was very it looks a lot like the bars down here, the bars in Wildwood.
Yeah.
I loved that about it.
Yeah,
so
it's
much.
very it's dark. It's smoky.
It's smoky. It's just, I think that as a movie itself, and like you said, I think a lot of my thinking when watching this, and because, this show is about re-looking at the movies that really influenced us as kids. So I was really thinking a lot like, why was this movie so fascinating to us as a kid? Yeah. Yeah, why? I don't know. Like, I feel like I want to talk to my brother and my sister about it. Like, I wrote here, why did I watch this as a kid?
I could see, I totally would understand your parents being very excited. Like, hey, this is a locally set movie. Like, I would want to... I like that kind of thing. It's always very cool when, shows go to Atlantic City, or go, take little trips to areas, or if something's set nearby. I feel like that's always a fun thing.
Yeah, and my parents definitely knew. I remember Tony Mart, like my parents being like, oh yeah, like they had gone there before. They knew that place. So they were very excited about that. But yeah, like I just don't see how I, as a kid, would have understood
or related to this movie in any way, shape, or form, because it's not really a love story. No. I mean, it has some love between Eddie and Joe, and then Joe and Wordman.
But I also think there's like a very complicated relationship between Eddie and Frank, the Tom Berenger character.
But they don't really they don't go really deep into those things. But again, they do try, the movie does try to be very deep and very,
yes.
Like words and music, man. Words and music.
But that's the thing that I remember. Like, I think of my parents a lot watching this, and how, for their generation for sure, music was very important to them. Like, and I think that that's something that they have handed down to us.
Definitely.
This love of music. And music was important to our parents' generation, I think, in ways that I don't know. Like, now it's so... everybody can have different things that they like. There's so much music out there. But for our parents, music meant this big thing.
Oh,
so my thought thinking back on this was that the words and music thing was something that, like, I remember my mom always quoting that, like, words and music, like, yeah, I mean, it was like a big thing. And I think about that a lot too with when the songs I like, not from this movie, but just in my life,
yes,
I focus more on lyrics and things. Me and my husband have this conversation all the time, because my husband's favorite songs would be more like, he likes a bop.
Okay.
Like he likes like the music part of it.
Well, he's a musician too.
And I like the words part of it.
Sure, because you're a word person.
I'm a word person, but words and music, Kim, you need both.
You're some kind of genius with words.
I'm not.
That's what they told Frank the Word Man.
I know, but there's concepts in this movie, like I was saying before, there's big adult concepts in this movie, like failure. Is a big thing.
Like, clearly Eddie is depressed.
He's trying for something. Like, that's the big crux of this movie. The crux. We get to it yet again. We always do.
Always comes back to the crux, baby.
We get to the crux. We need like a sound effect that goes off when we get to the crux. So... in the movie, they're this like typical Jersey bar band. They're playing like Betty Lou's Got a New Pair of Shoes, just like these just kind of fun songs that everybody likes their music, but Eddie Wilson's thing is, and it's funny, Wilson makes me think of like the Beach Boys, because that was the thing with the Beach Boys too. They had these like, you know, these surf songs, but then, you know, Dennis Wilson, is that his name? Something Wilson? He's definitely Wilson. Brian Wilson definitely wanted to take things to this other level and was always kind of in search of this thing beyond the sound. And I think that's very much Eddie Wilson. Like, he wants to go beyond just this typical bar sound, and he wants to do something great, something no one's ever done before. Right. So they write this album that's called Season in Hell. And it is based off of, there's a lot of ties between the poet Rimbaud.
Right.
And they draw a lot of parallels between them.
So fucking deep. Wow.
It is. And that they're going to take, you know, he writes these songs, and you hear one of the songs, which is a good song. They play it at the end. But that album never gets released because the one record executive hears it and was like, I can't release this. And so Eddie Wilson is just like torn apart, and then he, you know, drives his car off of the side of a bridge.
I read that executive guy, he wrote, he didn't want any music by a bunch of jerk-offs making weird sounds.
Well, I told you, that's the guy from Jane and the Americans.
Okay. But that's also, I mean, the parallels to the Beach Boys come back again, because wasn't that with them too? Like, they had made this very, like, commercial music, and then they wanted to do, like, crazy. Same with the Beatles too, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, they made these boppy musics.
These boppy musics. Yes. Love those boppy musics.
Who doesn't? And then they tried to do something like more out there, and it was definitely like a departure. So people were somewhat concerned.
Sure, but I feel like, you know, the Beatles were very successful in that, where they turned things and they changed music. But I don't know that, I almost think about, and I've heard other people talk about that at the time, that some bands could go along with that and could evolve,
yes,
like the Beatles did, but not everybody could.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you see. I mean, you see that artists don't necessarily span generations very often, because they're not able to, you know, keep up with the times or keep making relevant music for new generations. Like, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. So I think that is like his heart is going into this album, and then when the record executive hates it, it's like he is just torn apart, and there's this failure. So like the big concepts like failure, jealousy, I think between the Sal character and like there's a little bit of jealousy there. I think there's jealousy between Frank and the Tom Berenger character, and then Eddie Wilson, where he's maybe jealous of his girlfriend Joanne, who's in the band playing
the worst.
You hated her.
I did hate her too.
I didn't hate her. I just think she was like kind of useless, but I also
I didn't hate her, but she was pretty useless.
Well, you know what though, I thought about a lot when I was really thinking of like what were the things that I remembered from this that could have impacted me. Do you remember that speech she gives at the college? They go to a college, and it's a fancy college. It's like an Ivy League college, and you find out that the Tom Berenger character, that's where he went from. So there's very much this have and have nots thing of like, we're from the other side of the tracks. So Frank, you aren't really part of our world. You're part of this other world, and they feel very uncomfortable going to this Ivy League college. And I remember not getting that, but she gives this whole speech about how when she was in high school, and the guidance counselor was basically like, you're pretty, but like you're not going to really be anything. Like, go be a hairdresser, which I feel like go be a typist. And I think that kind of thing, that chip on your shoulder stuff, was definitely something that I felt a lot of connection to, like the underdog, like you know what I mean?
Well, I think too, and I think that's a big theme. I wrote Eddie, chip on his shoulder about college and being smart. Like, he gets real defensive when, you know, the Frank guy talks about him being good enough or whatever.
Right.
He's like, I didn't say I wasn't good enough, or I didn't say I wasn't smart enough. He wasn't smart enough. He was dumb eyes.
He had handsome, beautiful eyes, and you take that all back. But yeah, I remember as a kid, that whole part in the college, I didn't really understand. Like, I knew that Frank kisses Joanne there, and that's definitely caused, like, Eddie sees that, and that's like a rift. But I didn't understand the whole part when they're playing when they actually play at the college. I didn't realize that it was such a huge, like, the diss that happens there.
Yeah.
I just thought, like, I didn't understand why he was doing that. So essentially what happens is they go to play at this college, and he's, Frank knows people at this college, and he's really proud to kind of go back there and play with the band and to be like, hey, look, this is the band that I'm in. Aren't I cool?
Right.
But then when it comes to be the part in the show where Eddie is introducing everyone in the band, he skips over Tom Berenger, Frank first, but then people in the audience are like, hey, who's that? Who's the guy on the piano? Because they know who he is, and they want him to introduce him, and he doesn't say his name. He makes up a name.
Toby Tyler.
Toby Tyler, which is... Me, I can't even tell you how much in my family. Like, I feel like my brother wanted to name a dog Toby.
I had a dog named Toby.
I think that my brother even thought about naming his son Toby. We thought, we didn't know what he was going to name his son. His son's name is Indigo, Indy.
Right.
But we didn't know what he was going to name him. And I feel like I floated, like, that he might name him Toby.
Toby Tyler. Oh my goodness.
Right, because of this movie. But yeah, like, I didn't understand what a diss that was. Like, now I understand. Watching it now, I definitely understood more of the dynamics that were going on with people. Like being screwed over by the powers that be. I think they talk about that a lot, how the record executives took all their money. That's why, like, Frank's working as a teacher in Vineland. And, some of the other people are, they it's not like they had these big careers after this. And they do talk a lot about how, like, in the movie, their music's coming back up and it's becoming popular again. And that's why, like, the reporter wants to do the story about it and everything else. I mean, I definitely think that it works as a movie.
It's a movie. I mean, it's not. It doesn't not work. It doesn't not work. And I was reading a lot of stuff about it, and people were like, "This is my favorite rock and roll movie ever." And I'm like, "Really? Have you seen the Elton John movie?" But yeah. So I definitely. I mean, I don't know. I think it, to me, seeing it from, these old eyes, I feel like it takes itself very seriously.
It does,
and also, it's just kind of weird because, and there's, like, the guy, Doc.
Yes.
The dreamer, Doc.
Joey Pants.
He is, like, he pretends to be Eddie.
Yeah,
like,
it makes no sense.
Like, the last half of the movie, you're kind of like, oh, everybody's like, Eddie's back. Because he's, like, calling people.
As one does.
Right.
That's how you reveal yourself after you faked your death.
And he is, and everybody's house is getting broken into, which they also do absolutely nothing about. All of their houses get broken into, and they're just like, oh yeah, that's weird. But then, so this Doc guy is, calling and driving around in his same car.
Yeah.
And pretending to be him, and then you find out it's him, and you're like, oh, okay, that's the end of the movie. Because why would they have someone pretend to be him if he was also still alive? But then he is still alive.
Yes, you see him at the very end that he has kind of come back, and he's like
aged with his beard.
He's got a beard.
Yeah.
But you kind of just see him, like, a glimpse of him at the end of this movie. Which I remember as a kid being like, what? Oh my God. Yeah, like, I also think, like you were saying, the movie takes itself very seriously, and I wonder if, as a kid, because it is so, like, it's not nuanced in some ways, like, it's a little bit on the nose with stuff. So, like, that scene, I remember, like, as a kid, that scene in the Palace of Depression.
Yes.
Which is an actual place, or was an actual place in Vineland that a homeless man built out of trash and, like, cement.
And old cars.
Yeah, it was, like, just junk that he put together this thing, but then it's been taken apart, but, like, now I guess they're trying to rebuild it, because in Vineland, what else do they have to do? Sorry, people of Vineland.
Don't talk about Vineland.
I'm sorry, Vineland.
Also, they didn't teach Tom Berenger how to say Vineland. He called it Vineland.
Yeah.
I'm living over in Vineland.
Yeah, come on, Tom Berenger.
Get it together.
But yeah, like, I remember that scene as a kid being very moving to me.
In the junkyard?
Yeah.
With him and the girl?
With him and the girl.
Okay.
Like, so when he and the girl go back, and Eddie and the girl go there after, like, the record executive doesn't like his album, and he's really upset. And he goes there, and he talks about, like, what that place is and how it's meaningful to him. And he's like, I guess I'm just another piece of junk. Like, you're laughing, but it was like, and he's just like, here I am, Eddie Wilson, and all this stuff, and it's like, you can see she's a little bit scared of him, and he's upset, and he's acting this way, and I remember as a kid being very, like, moved by it.
I wrote, Eddie has self-esteem issues. He's sad about his music.
He is. He is.
I
mean, but it's like, it certainly is, like, they are this scrappy underdog band, this band that's, like, trying to do something, almost like a fighting against the man kind of a thing.
I guess so, but you don't see that origin story of them. Like, you're just, like, it needed a montage. It needed a montage of them, like, playing these, like, shitty bars to zero crowds. And, like, it needed that come up of, like, this is where we started. And we're really making this thing, and it's growing, and it's great, and it's getting better, and now we're famous, and then we're trying to do this second movie, and boom, fall from grace.
See, I don't think that that's the thing. Like, to me, it's like like, you know how there's those people that are, or bands or anything like that, who are really popular where they're from, like they're beloved, but then they can't take it to that next place. So it's like they have that local fame.
Yeah.
They have, like, they're packing bar rooms, like. They have fans, like a huge fan base where they are. But it's like, and that's like when the guy says, we're just some guys from Jersey, which I know my brother had a band, his college band was called Jersey Band, and they sampled that with one of their songs. But yeah, like, I think that to me was more the story where, you know, we were locally famous, but we wanted to do something bigger than that, but we couldn't. Like, we couldn't make it to that next step. Mm-hmm. And now, years later, people are finding that music, and that's great. I think they're all happy about that. But I like where he says, like, we really only made one album.
Right.
You know, I like, think of how many bar bands down by us that people loved, and they would advertise them on the radio. Love Seed, Mama Jump. I can't believe that was the same one that we both thought of. But yeah, like, they're not famous bands that anyone knows anywhere else, but people love them down here. Mm-hmm. You know? So that, I mean, that was my thought with it. But I mean, I don't know. Like,
I'm glad you love it. I mean, you can still love it.
I do. I mean, it didn't. I think some movies you want to. Like, you go back and watch it and are just like, oh my God, I'm like, what is this? I really liked it. I mean, I also think it's funny, that whole Eddie Lives thing where it's like, is he alive? Isn't he alive?
Yeah.
That was, you know, it's funny. We were watching the new Elvis movie.
Right.
I watched that with, like, my kids. And I told them, like, yeah, when I was younger, it was a whole thing.
It was always on the tabloids and stuff.
Yeah, like, was Elvis alive? Wasn't he alive? And my kids were so confused. Like, what? They're like, what do you mean they didn't think he was dead?
Right. Well, there was a whole, I mean, I went through, like, every good child of the 80s and 90s, I went through a big Doors fan phase.
Of course.
And that was always the thing with Jim Morrison, too, that he had faked his own death and that he would come back as Mr. Mojo Rising.
You said that, the way you just said that was amazing.
So serious.
So he's going to come back as Mr. Mojo Rising.
And it was like, is he dead? Is he not dead? He's going to, like, leave these clues for people that and it's just like, no, he was a fucking drug addict who died on the toilet. Like Elvis, right?
And Wendell in this movie, apparently.
So let's talk about Wendell for a second.
Okay.
The only black character in this movie is Wendell, the saxophone player.
A great saxophone player.
Yes, in the band. He's in the Eddie band, the Eddie and the Cruisers band. He never speaks.
But he's not an actor because he's actually the saxophone player.
He can't say a couple words. Well, he can't be like, hey, that's a good idea, or something like that.
Maybe he had some and it wasn't that good. Well, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just saying he's a Beaver Brown.
Well, and good for him. I'm glad he had a successful career, but they didn't give him a chance to talk in this movie at all. Didn't. There's other people in the band, and all of them get to talk.
There's other people in this movie, and none of them are, except for that guy. I don't think any of them have any other skin tone but peaked.
And then we get to his storyline. Even when we talk about him directly, he never speaks. He's just dead in his hotel room of a drug overdose.
He is. Yeah,
And then they just quickly replace him with another black saxophone player.
Yes, they certainly do.
Like, the night that they're talking about his death and mourning the loss, and Eddie's just so brokenhearted he can't go on, they've already got another saxophone player up there.
I mean, when you say it like that, it does sound pretty bad.
It's really bad.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, it definitely has those kind of things. The other thing I thought of while watching this movie is like, you know, I know we talked about the budget for this was like a $6 million budget, which, you know, I guess not a lot in
Sure.
Like, I would love $6 million.
Sure.
Give me $6 million.
Wish my budget was $6 million.
I know, seriously. But there were so many extras in this movie. Like, think of all the scenes, like, when they're in a bar, when they're at the college,
Yeah.
even when he's at high school, when they're at, you know, the beach. There's so many extras in this movie that do give it that Jersey Shore feel by having so many people around.
What's funny to me, because I liked that you could tell that it was definitely a Jersey beach because it was so narrow.
Right. Oh yeah, with like the pier going out, like
Yeah,
was...
and like the beach was like pretty small, and you know, as we know, Wildwood has the wide beach.
I was going to say they weren't in Wildwood.
No, but every place else has those tiny beaches. So
yeah, I know. But yeah, I was just thinking because all of those extras are also in costume, so I was like, man, they really had to wrangle a lot of extras and put them in 50s, 60s garb. I guess.
I know they do in movies.
It was like, for it being such like a little movie, it seemed like, was this a little movie? Or, I mean, I guess they pulled some names for it. Ellen Barkin, Tom Berenger. I mean, I don't know.
Yes,
they pulled some names.
Those are names.
It's true. I say I still love this movie. I love the music. That was the thing when I thought of this movie, those songs have been in my head for like the past couple weeks since I've been thinking about doing this movie, and I've been dying to go back and listen to it or watch it.
Find your tape.
I know. That probably is still around.
It's probably still in your car.
I can envision it. I can envision the picture of him on the front of it, and it was like red, and it was just great. But yeah, I've been wanting to listen to the songs, but I was like, no, I want to experience them again for the first time watching this movie with you. And I gotta say, they didn't disappoint. Like, there's some real bangers in this.
The On the Dark Side song, I mean, it's definitely a hit. Everybody, you guys would all know that song for sure. You probably think it's Bruce Springsteen. But it's not. It's Eddie and the Cruisers. And I feel like they still play that on ZXL and stuff like that.
And everyone knows ZXL plays all the hits down the Jersey Shore.
The 80s, the 90s, and today. No, actually not.
No, they don't. Yeah, I think they're still playing the same tape from back in the day. But yeah, that song's big. Like, Tender Years was a great song. I like the Season in Hell song that they played at the end. I was excited to hear that one. Yeah, they have a lot of really great songs on this. So it was...
I wanted to mention, too, since I know we have a big fan base who always likes to tell us about how the characters in some of our movies are also on 90210.
Oh, that's true.
And I wanted to tell you that Matthew Laurance, who was... Is that Sal?
Sal, who played the gay neighbor. He plays the bass.
He played Ron.
Yes.
In St. Elmo's Fire. He played
Sal
in this movie, the bass player. But he was on 90210. He was David Silver's dad, Brian Austin Green's dad, Mel Silver, the dentist on 90210.
He looks like a dentist.
Yeah, and
he definitely, like in real life, I think he might be a dentist.
Well, no, he's the dad on 90210.
Okay.
Well,
that's true. Well, that's so funny because the Hogan family, although he wasn't in a movie that we saw, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. So, all right. Well, that is, I mean, I feel like, to me, you know, thinking of, does this hold up? I think it does. Like, I mean, I think of all, there's so many shitty movies out there. I feel like this movie, it's very Scooby-Doo. Like, I think that whole part where he's in his car and then they pull him out of the car.
And with the headlights.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's no Citizen Kane, but it is a little Scooby-Doo.
It's true. Very fair.
But I definitely, I think that it holds up as something.
I mean, it's not controversial in any way, shape, or form. Like, aside from what we just talked about, which is, you know, very controversial and done all the time in movies, where you just have black characters that are just, like, there.
Yeah.
You know, that's definitely the worst of this movie. The rest of it is non-controversial.
No, it's pretty, I mean, you know.
There's not even any sex in it. There's
a lot of smoking, though.
A lot of smoking.
So much. Oh, my God. Tom Berenger, when he's in his bed, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's
all
like...
bare-chested.
He's all bare. I mean...
Yeah.
Kim was very alive.
We're going on a Berenger hunt after this. I'll send you pictures.
Yeah, I think you have to do like an Instagram post that's just young Tom Berenger.
Yeah, I might have to make another collage.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, I can't believe how hot that guy was, but he was certainly really hot.
Eyes.
Oh my God.
Just lovely all around.
Good for him.
I looked him up now.
You said he had 4 wives?
Yeah.
Anyone famous?
I don't think so. Okay. I don't know.
Okay. He's just...
Yeah, he was hotsy-totsy.
He was hotsy-totsy. So, would I recommend this to people? I would. Go watch this movie. I mean, you don't think so?
I mean, I don't know that I probably won't watch it again.
Well, you can only get it on DVD. I think there was, like, when I looked it up, there was some, like, weird streaming channel that you could get it from, too, but I didn't know if you would have it, so I just felt like I didn't want to chance it.
Sure.
So that's why I bought the DVD.
So now you own the DVD, so you can watch it all the time.
I'm going to. I'm going to show my kids, and my kids are going to be like, what is this?
I just don't think it would hold their attention.
I don't understand how it held me and my brother and sisters.
I have no idea.
I'm blown away by that. Yeah. Like, I can't wait to talk to my sister and brother and be like, why did we watch this? Like, why did we love this movie?
It's an adult movie, and I don't say that in the way that it's, like, sexy or, like, graphic or anything like that.
I wish it was more sexy and graphic with that Tom Berenger. Jesus.
But, yeah, I just don't, it's very curious to me how it held your attention for so long and how you loved it. But
yeah, because I was a very little kid. I mean, even if it came on cable in, we'll say 85, we'll say 2 years after it was made, it shows up on HBO, I still would have only been 8 years old.
Right.
So it's crazy to me. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know that I watched it as a teenager, maybe like middle school.
It just, and maybe it was because you thought that lead singer was foxy and that was enough.
Maybe. I mean, I thought, I can't believe, I want everyone to go watch this movie, at least look at pictures. That's what the post needs to be. We need to have Berenger and then Michael Pare from this movie. And then I want to hear from everyone who they think is, like, are you team Berenger or are you team Pare?
They're like, who? We don't know who that is.
Yeah, because Tom Berenger did have a much better career. Yeah. I mean, he's a better actor. I can see that. Mm-hmm. I can see that now. Mm-hmm. God.
Better mouth.
You stop it. Would you recommend? You wouldn't recommend people watch it?
No. I wouldn't. I don't. It's not necessary. You'll be okay with or without it. I'm just saying that.
Okay. So, all right. Well, I'm down anyway. Well, now it's that time in our show where we do our 6 degrees of Spader.
Woo! My favorite part.
Yes. So this one, we get all the way up to 5 degrees.
Whoa.
Yeah, we had to go far and wide and deep to get to Spader.
Okay.
So it's all going to start with Joey Pants.
Yeah, it is.
And he was in one of your favorite movies and mine, The Goonies.
Yes.
So also in The Goonies was Corey Feldman.
He was.
And he was also in Lost Boys.
He was.
Also in Lost Boys was the very great, we have to watch a movie with this guy in it, Kiefer Sutherland.
I know. It's so interesting. So many people haven't come up yet. I mean.
I know. We have a lot of ground to cover. So Kiefer Sutherland was in Young Guns.
Oh, yeah.
Young Guns. And who was also in that? Emilio Estevez, who was in Kerbo, who played Kerbo in St. Elmo's Fire with Andrew McCarthy, who was in a number of movies with James Spader, including our favorite version of Spader, which is from Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, Steph.
So we got there.
Yeah, you did.
We did. We did. Well, I did want to, before we close up the show, you had mentioned people commenting on characters that we talk about that are in 90210. So
yes.
The ways you can find us and keep up with what we're doing on the podcast are we have an Instagram account where Kim posts some amazing content, which you should definitely check out. There's a beautiful ad of us when we're really young in there right now, which I love so much.
That's really us, guys.
It's really us. We did not get actors. And then we also have a TikTok.
We do.
We're on the TikTok, or as Kim likes to call it, the Tim Tom.
Yes.
So on our TikTok, we just post like little clips from the show or talking about different things. And I posted a clip from the Twilight Zone episode where we went off on a little tangent about the Hogan family.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many people are like, liking and commenting on that. It's kind of blowing my mind. And someone just posted recently that we should be ashamed for not mentioning Mrs. Poole.
We should be.
We should be. So I want to correct that, and I want to say, shout out Mrs. Poole. You were the greatest neighbor in the world on the Hogan Family.
Also the secretary in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, she was great. So, I would be remiss without saying, shout out Mrs. Poole. And thank you to all of those people who are following us on TikTok. We will certainly add more posts.
And we're at Confidently Contro on TikTok and at Confidently Controversial on Instagram. You can also send us an email, confidentlycontroversial@gmail.com. Yep. We would love to hear from you. Send us your movie ideas. Tell us what we're missing.
Give us recommendations. Yeah, say hi. Give us a recommendation. Like we said, there's so many movies out there. It's almost like it's too. Sometimes it's so hard to pick because there's just so many to choose from.
Yes, so there's a lot of content left to come.
Yeah, so if you have any recommendations, a movie you would love for us to watch again, certainly send us an email and let us know. But at the end of the day, we're just really happy that all of you guys are here and all of you are listening, and that you enjoy our little brand of shtick.
Yeah, we like you.
We like you so much. You can be, Kim, you're my best friend, and I'm your best friend, but we'll be best friends with other people. Maybe.
Will we?
No, I don't know. We like you guys, though, a lot. Right. So thank you so much for joining us today, and remember, as always, to be very confident.
Yes. Don't be like Eddie and have bad self-esteem about your music.
Yeah, don't be like Eddie, but be confident and not too controversial. Maybe Eddie was too controversial with Season in Hell.
Right.
So don't be. All right, we love you guys.
Bye.
Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial.